Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the block 3 of the PBM course, MMPM003. Today we move to another important area of the PBM course. We will be covering brand management in the next 4 units. Today's unit would be on the concepts of branding and its evolution, going forward to brand equity, then building brand building blocks, and then to brand architecture and brand extension. Today's unit, we are going to focus only on the fundamentals of brand management, concepts, and the strategic relevance of branding. What makes brand name important for the marketer, and what kind of policy decisions can be adopted for branding the products or services. We will also look into how to name our brand, what kind of a framework can be used for a brand name selection. And we'll also talk about something regarding building brands, going on to a concept called brand image and its dimensions. And further, we'll wind up with branding of commodities. Let's look at the first one. So, as we look into that concept of brand, what is a brand? When somebody is looking at a brand, what do we mean by that? And what kind of a strategic importance does it have? Just to put things into perspective, according to AMA, they consider brand as a name or a term or a logo or a symbol or a combination of thoughts or some combination of all these factors which is attached to a given product or service so that you can differentiate it from the rest of the sellers and offer it to the market, to the consumers to meet their requirements. So, but the simple concept that we talk about brand is as a name, as a term or a symbol, has gone way past its importance today. If you see, currently we look at branding as a process, and brands which contribute more towards the stakeholders' values, and we look into concepts like brand value, what is its significance in terms of the contributing to the business objective as an asset. So the process of branding is basically to identify, or of course it is done with an objective to identify what your offers are, offering unique distinctions of points of comparison or points of differentiation as we call them, and then helps us to position the brands to the end users. If you look into the kind of engagement that the branding process, it is not only a process, it is a tool, it is also a strategic decision that a firm talks about, and we look into its orientation, which has got an impact cutting across all aspects of the organization. So when we talk about the functions of a brand today, when we say let's say Bata as a brand, so it connotes certain things. When we talk about Apple, or we talk about iPhone, when we talk about Samsung, we have the range of smartphones S20, S40, S70, whatever it is. We talk about certain functions that the brand wishes to engage with the customers. Of course, there are different ways in which we'll be branding, and something which we will talk about as we go through. What is captured in a brand is obviously their functional and symbolic aspects, which are captured to offer to the customers at large. Another important area for any marketer is to see that yes, we can name some brands, we can bring them into the market, we can connect it with the customers, but we also need to ensure that these brands are successful. So when you create a brand, we would look into also brand sustenance. So while we are coding the identity of the brand, we also look into the long-term perspectives, what the brand is going to sustain from a business perspective. We also look into branding over a period of time across different geographical locations, and so that we can leverage out of having brands which really makes the portfolio strong in terms of the marketability of the products and services. Just to name a few, what are the various functions of a brand? You can see the functional obviously is we look into the utility functions to benefit the customers. Another key function that it forms, as I told you, is that whenever you name something, so among, let's say you name iPhone among other smartphones, you are identifying it by a unique name with alphanumeric kind of a connotation, and then it has to it serves as an identification, as a recognition factor. It is like I go into the sea of people and say that I'm so and so with my name. It gives me certain identification. So brands definitely has been identification, and furthermore, it has to be serving certain benefits to the customers. It also serves as a kind of guarantee. Now, obviously, whenever you see registered marks, when it comes from, let's say, a very well-established brand like Tata's or Reliance, it also shows a certain amount of guarantee that their products and services have got something built into it in terms of a guarantee which the people can, go for. In terms of practicality, we also look into, if you see, if I offer products without brand names, just like that, it may take time for them to register and will not be able to convey what it stands for. So it becomes easier for people to identify with and can take a action. Looking into from the continuity point of view, obviously we look into the, as I told you, the satisfaction that customers get after using a brand is not just one transaction. It translates into a longer relationship, and it helps you to consolidate the image in the with the customers as well as the other stakeholders. We can also use the brands to get better leverage in the marketplace. We will not only that, as I told you, brands can be are today considered as assets. Assets from the sense that yes, if we have certain brands in the portfolio, it becomes an asset for the company. For example, in Nestle, Maggie is a big asset to them because obviously you can optimize the business opportunities utilizing the capability of the brand Maggie. Similarly, in case of other products, you will find that there are brands which have dominated, which have become successful brands, and the company can leverage out of their image in the marketplace. It also gives you a sense of satisfaction and gives you certain kind of pleasure to be associated. If you look at it from the consumer perspective, that if I'm associated with a brand X, it gives me a personal satisfaction. Those brands which suppose if I'm an owner of Mercedes, obviously it gives me a kind of a hedonic pleasure. It gives me some kind of pleasure of being associated with the brand. These days, with lot of efforts where companies are looking ahead for better products, ethical standards, legal sanctity, brands definitely help them in giving that legal sanctity, that protection that it requires. It also ensures that they are following ethical standards. So whenever brands are registered or trademarked, we are always convinced as a consumer that they are into ethical standard practices and will not do something which can go haywire against the customer. So when we look into and brands definitely gives you the advantage of being visible in the marketplace, and obviously a portfolio of very strong brands definitely leads you to have a positive image associated with the organization. So the impact of branding today is much more strategic than what it was functionally or it was originally thought of. If you see Leslie Chiratoni, he defined brand as a cluster of functional and emotional values that enables a promise to be made about a unique and welcome experience. So whenever we look into any kind of a product, a brand, it is like almost a promise that the company is giving for you to experience, to relish, to be able to identify with, to be able to differentiate with. And obviously, when we are clubbing that with the various brand elements, the logo, the tagline, the slogan, obviously it gives an impact in the minds of the people about that what kind of a company stands for. So whether it's a corporate brand, whether it's a product brand, whether it's a service brand, it definitely talks about a lot of emotional values apart from the class functional values it represents. Um, Over the years, firms like Interbrand, which are consulting, which is a brand consulting firm based out of London, UK, they have been able to understand the value of brand and come up with ratings of brands across the globe. And you will find that many companies are able to, position themselves better in terms of brand value. Brand value is nothing but the equity of a brand expressed in certain financial terms. And you can understand that if I have a cluster of brands, what is the worth of my brand? Primarily depending upon what kind of brand value it carries. So they come up with these, the cluster of companies having different kind of brands, what kind of brand value they have. And these are very critical to a shareholder, because whenever you're looking into a robust brand visibility, they always try to see that it has got a positive impact from the market, and you can leverage out of it in terms of the investment that the company is planning to make, or be a part of the investment process of the growth story of a company. Uh, there are also important brands in their portfolios, in any portfolio, contributes towards having a competitive advantage over the competition. Because one of the base element, why do we brand a product or a service or an entity or an event or an idea, is primarily because we want not to create a point of differentiation from the competitors. And so obviously strong powerful brand associations can help us register better competitive advantage in the marketplace, and helps us in sustenance of the brand over a longer period of time. I've already told you that when you are looking into global brands, you will find that how you're managing the brand. So it's not only, there are three buckets as I look at it. One is the creation of the brand, second is the nurturing or building of the brand, then you are talking about brand management, and then you're talking in terms of the handling the criticalities. When we talk about the brand architecture, it's something which we will talk about in future interactions. So consumers understand, when consumers, and they look at different kind of, if you look at the brand value chain today, they look into the consumer, the company, of course, and then the stakeholders. The stakeholders are the shareholders and the investors and the public who are interested in the brands today. So right across all these domains, the brand engages and has become a strategic focus to render better services, or to which stands for better services, better quality, better assurances, and also a goodwill factor in the minds of the people. And at a product level, definitely manufacturers have gained by by using branding as a concept for differentiating their products in the marketplace effectively, by reaching out to various segments in the marketplace. There are certain policy level decisions which one can take in terms of branding. So broadly, if you can see here, it can be taken up. What branding must have is a few things that branding must have. As you can see it here, the manufacturer's name, of course, if possible, but not necessarily all brands have the manufacturer's name. Another thing is you need to know is that a distributor or adopt a mix of two. So the origin where you are coming from needs to be there, because it helps in identification in the marketplace. There are few policies, level decisions which are taken with respect to the brand. One is obviously the family brand name, which extends the family name to new products. The other one is the individual brand name, a practice which is done for most of the products like the FMCG sector for their products. So let's look at some of the options which are available to the marketers today. The manufacturer branding policy is a very common policy, where the strategy is to build in on the company's reputation, so that people can have the people who have seen the company grow from small to big or to a larger firm, they've been able to understand the story better, they've been able to understand how it functions. So it makes sense to associate the manufacturer's brand name into your branding policy. For example, when you talk about Hero Motors, when you talk about Bajaj, if you talk about Raymond, Tata, Reliance, Adani, the kind of reputation the company has utilized the resources and have built a very strong, powerful name for themselves in the businesses does have a positive rub off, and of course, the financial resources too, has a positive rub off on the market. When you talk about market, the consumers and the stakeholders, and of course, the other competitors also look up to it with a lot of admiration. So if you talk about HUL has not built a reputation just like that, right? So or Hero Motors, if you talk about Birla, they all have successfully been using the marketers, the manufacturer's name to attain better acceptance from the marketplace. Another way of looking at it is a family branding, where you can come up with different brands. Here, where if you are dealing with a lot of brands, what you can do is you can make certain brands stronger and grow under them other products. So you can bring in more products under one name and it's an established brand name, and then you can grow that. But the point is, while building the brand, one has to see that the brand is able to offer the successes in terms of quality, in terms of meeting the customer requirements, are more appreciated by the people. They're able to understand. They're able to understand what the brand stands for, and it's got a positive vibe from the market. Only then, perhaps you can enhance the existing trust and the reliability of the brand amongst the consumers. Of course, the brand knowledge among the consumers is also critical, because if it's a good brand, people conceive the brand knowledge is good. So you can always leverage on the existing brand name's success story and can come up with new products which are offering to the market. However, it has its own disadvantage. Like for example, if within the family, if some of the products don't do well, it might have a negative rub off on the base products. But some of the well-known brands, as you can see, something like Dove. So we have been able to go from a moisturizing cream, a soap, to shampoos across various product categories, so face wash and deodorants. So when you are extending, or Maggi for that matter, is also extended into from noodles to soups to we talk in terms of the ketchups. What has millets today? Millets has become a very important part of that. So you'll find that the brand Maggi has also cut across different product categories, leveraging on their existing brand. So family branding is almost like an umbrella. So it is also called umbrella branding, which spreads the positiveness across the new products. It also helps strategically because it helps to the consumers identify, because they have a known brand and they can always utilize that for, and their expectations are that, okay, it would stand up for the same level of success that the parent company, the parent brand was. And obviously it helps in registering positive vibes with the market. Individual branding policy is basically another policy which is taken for where you are branding the products or services individually, and you could use it by the functional parameters which are there, mostly followed by the FMCG sector performers in the marketplace, like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Dabur, ITC, where they come across individual product name to propagate them. But then point is, it is slightly difficult from the family blanket name, because in family blanket we already have a brand which is already established, which has already got a kind of leverage with the customers. But in this case, it could be like a new branding that you are doing, starting from the scratch. You have to build it from the scratch, but it has its own advantages too, though it is expensive. But once your brand image is built in an individual policy, you can always leverage out of the brand name. And you can also, obviously going forward, you can also grow under that few other brands as an umbrella brand. So these are not watertight compartments that only if I am adopting one type of branding policy, I cannot do the same. For different product, depending upon the market requirements, you can leverage the branding policy. Now coming to the other part type of branding policy, which is for the distributor. You must have seen that online grocers like Groffer, this Big Basket, Reliance Smart, they have been able to consolidate the marketplace in terms of the distributor's brand policy, because they've been able to convince people and have been able to give more stronghold to the brands which they are representing. At the same time, we also have, if you are talking about the various distributor brands, they also are having certain disadvantages. Disadvantages in the sense like they're not always present everywhere, and of course they need to have strengths, and customers need to have confidence in it. In this, what happens, their success is primarily driven by the products that they showcase. So the products that they showcase in this case would be the manufacturer's brand. So how strong that manufacturer brand, based on that, their reputation is based. We can also look at some of the risks which are associated with the strategy. One can lose control over product market. For example, if I'm a marketer, if my distributor branding is very, very strong, that if I'm making it available at my distributor's brand, obviously the distributor brand gets more leverage than me. So obviously the premium would go to the distributor and less to the manufacturer. This has also given rise to private label brands, which has become a problem for the many manufacturer brands in the marketplace. The other is a mixed policy, where you could have, as I told you before, all these strategies are not watertight compartments. So one can use it effectively across, depending upon the emerging scenarios. Now let's look into what is a brand name, and why so much of hue and cry are made out of the brand name. What does it represent, right? And of course, a brand name, as I told you before, it is either a term or a symbol what that distinguishes one product or service from the others. And bringing in a name is first it's okay, but the point is, how do you manage it? That becomes a very crucial part of the next process. So generally, as I told you, it could be branding names could mean, when you talk about choosing a brand name, it could mean many things. It could mean that you are relating the product to what it represents, and or may not represent. For example, there are brands which talks in terms of functional ideas. For example, Move On. When you talk about Ray-Ban, so they are functional. So the utilities are there. Sometimes they may not even talk about what kind of functionalities they represent. Classic examples are there, like Sprite or Pepsi. Pepsi, of course, has got a company's name built into it. I'm coming to that. But there may not be any specific reasons why a particular brand name has been used. The name of the manufacturer in the product. For example, I was talking about Bata, Titan. Tata uses a lot of manufacturer brands in their branding, because they feel that the initial way of entering gives a lot of leverage to the brand, because the name Tata has, in India at least, gives a lot of sanctity, a lot of legality, a lot of ethicality, a lot of quality assurances to the consumers. Hence, they would like to leverage on it. You can also have brand names which is a combination of alphanumerical parameters, like in the case of two-wheelers market, XCZ, or we talk about CPC, or we talk in terms of LAT, those kind of things. Even iPhones 15, something like that. Further, as I've already told, we can also represent the functionalities. Apart from that, you also have that certain brands, while naming, they become very, very generic. Over a period of time, what happens, it becomes so well associated with the product concept that it becomes almost very generic in nature. A case in point, very strongly we had talked about is Xerox. Xerox is actually is a brand name, but what does it stand for is a photocopier, photocopying machines. So in their offering, when they came up with photocopy machines, it got almost synonymous with the brand name of the company. So today when you talk about Xerox, Xerox is equal to photocopy. Nobody says photocopiers, they talk in terms of Xerox. In fact, some of the in B2B negotiations, they are in case of you must have seen the tender notices. They try to say that we need X amount of Xerox photocopies, Xerox machines. So that by itself speaks volumes about the kind of credibility that the brand has. And it has become, though it is a photocopier, but we represent it by the generic name. Many other examples are there, like Surf, Dalda. We talk in terms of Tempo, which are in case of some of the markets, we talk in terms of the Kodak. Kodak has also become almost synonymous as a generic name. And yes, it has got certain positive rubber, but over a period of time, it becomes difficult to manage it. And it serves as the purpose of of differentiating very less. As you move on, it becomes very generic. So that's something which is an extreme part of it. But a good brand name definitely is a strong point for any company, because it has positive rub-off in terms of recognition, status that it imparts to the consumer's mind. And the buyers obviously look up to that while taking shopping decisions or while taking decisions to buy. And obviously, consistently, if you are using the brand name, a good brand name, a brand name which is got a good acceptance due to its continued image, you can associate with with future businesses. You can also look into the confidence of the market in those brands which you are holding, and you can have better things in life. Obviously, in India, it is mandatory to, or like elsewhere, it is important to register the brand because it can be confiscated. So it makes sense for every company to put it under a registration or a legal framework, so that we can take away the positive parameters associated with the brand. Next, we move into the brand name selection. In this is a very well example has been given in your books, but I would just talk upon some of the parameters as we go through. So, as you know, the name selection process is a very elaborate process. It's not so simple to come up with a name. It's not just picking up any name and giving it to the product that it represents. So it is many things are advocated for in terms of certain values. So here is one such thing. We look across we try to find out prepare checkpoints for different values that can be contained in a name. For example, the associational value. So what do? We pick up certain qualities of the product and the association of the name to which it is likely to establish. So qualities of the product as well as the association of the name. What kind of a name we would like to establish. Then we link it with the various aspects of parameters of satisfaction which are related to those qualities. So, and they are put up in form of a priority, as you can see here, in form of attribute A, B, C, depending upon the importance, the list is prepared. Memorization. Similarly, like the same thing we followed for the name, which can be made to rhyme in or meaning, right? Meaning something which are very common, where the audience can easily identify with, or ghadi, for example, ghadi everybody can understand. So this is the kind of the memorization value which can be associated with the naming process. Then comes the descriptional value. What kind of product qualities need to be described according to the consumer preferences. You can draw inferences from the customer feedbacks and can see how would they like to use these products. So we are talking about the descriptional value. Similarly, like the attribute, we talk in terms of the description value also talks about the attribute A or B or C, talking in terms of the descriptional value. Next comes the motivational value. What happens here is that the respondents, the consumers get motivated to buy a particular brand based on certain motivational value that is associated with the name. So if you're talking about Tata's, for example, it has got that motivation to buy. Suppose you say KFC, KFC has got that Colonel Anderson's name to go buy, to make it more motivated to buy. So once you have done that, and of course, all these four parameters of associated value, memorizational value, descriptional value, and motivational value, they can be itself, if they are well thought of and well listed out, that will also lead to a repurchase value. So while you are going through the process, it has to be understood that what kind of association value, what kind of descriptive, what kind of memorizational value and motivation being stronger will render a stronger repurchase value. Next, we go for the second step, that is to search for names. Now, for the possible, we have to now search for the list of possible names that can be given to the product and to fulfill the objectives which has been outlined in the first step in terms of associational value, descriptional value, motivational value. And the third part is that we are able to assign certain differential ratings. As you can see here, across these four values that we are talking about, you will find that we have associated with a differential ratings. That means if somebody is giving a rating of 0, in case of an associated value comes lower, then comes the unassociated or don't know neutral, associated and highly associated. So differing upon the kind of percentage of responses that we get from the customer, we can club it under the various ratings. Now, once these ratings are there, similarly, we'll do it for all the associated tests, value tests, right? So what you need to do is make a list where you're talking about the list of qualities and attributes are laid out in the checkpoints in one, and on the other side we're talking about product attributes on the other side, and then we are talking in terms of the names which are associated with it. You do the same thing for the other values. For the memorizational value, right? So the brand names which are listed in step 2, how easy they can be shuffled, and you can bring out which are the names which one you can associate very closely and can put them into the into the list. Description value, the list of things which are given into the participants. Each participant is asked to pick up few attributes he thinks that the name may contain. So all the attributes that you talk about and certain list of names, how much of that people are able to link it up, which was been described in the first step. Similarly, with the motivational things. So if you're talking about certain points of motivation, what kind of motivators are listed with the certain names? So you're trying to associate with the list with the names right now, which has been identified. Next, we put it into a quadrivalent analysis, where we try to see that any one of the parameters is not sufficient enough to come up with the potential. So we use mathematical expression like the equation here, MP is equal to AN, MM, DP, and MT, where your MP stands for marketing potency of a name. What is the potential of a name of registering better in the marketplace? An associated value, the memorization value, the DP stands for the descriptional value, and the motivational value. Once these parameters are put, which are derived from the step 3, then you will find that you can put it into a form of a graphic representation, as you can see here. This is a 3-dimensional program where you are talking diagram where you are talking about the descriptional value and the memorizable value on one platform, association value on the x-axis, on the y-axis, whereas your description value on the y-axis, associative value in the z-axis, and the x-axis taken up by the memorizational value. The motivational value is put up in form of a parenthesis in the diagram. As you can see, there will be 4. If you slice it, there will be some four patterns which will emerge in terms of the 3D graphic representation. Of course, if you take a slice out, if you take a midpoint and see where your brands are being names are being focused, you will find that, as you can see here, A and B are in the first quadrant, and there are some four quadrants here. And if you take this plane, there are another additional four, so there are 8 quadrants. So we find most of them are in the desirable position of quadrant 1, where you're trying to have a very strong memorizable, associational, and of course descriptional value. So on the higher side, that is the most desirable, but many times it may not happen. So which are the, you derive it and from the scores and put it across in this particular framework. Once you know which are the ones which you should be focusing, you should be deleting the others. Now you can go one step further. You can go further for slicing it, dicing it, and make from 8 to, you can go up to 16, and you can find out where are the names which you are suggesting lie. But our objective is to find out the right kind of name. So we will talk in terms of only the right name, maybe 2 or 3 which are listed out, and try to see what are the attributes that are associated. Here, to take a case in point, we talk about the 2 options which are given to us, A and B, and you see the number of potential consumers who are associated with the, so if you see in the list, that is the percentage of people who are associated, who have given up certain preferences, that has been mapped. So from there, you can say put out of 100, these are the people who are there and who have talked about a particular attribute in both ways, for both attribute as well as attribute B. But then we divide it by who have only selected for attribute A, and then we can find out the proportion of customers who are looking for A in associating with the name with the attribute B. So a name which has got both, but it has also got a strong preference towards the attribute A. Similarly, you do it for B. If you can do a Venn diagram, if you can put it into a Venn diagram, a set of customers would be people who are having attribute A will be a set of customers who associate the name to attribute A, and there are also people who a market share which is of customers who associate with attribute B. But there are areas where there could be an intersection between 2 subsets, that people who are looking into attribute A and in a name, they're also looking into an attribute B in the name, and that can be a combined area. So that gives us an area that this is the most viable one, which one we should pick it up. If you look into the, from the 4 values that we talked about, a set of 4 values that we are talking about, we can also draw Venn diagrams, as you can see it in figure 3, and can work out which are again the areas of intersection. The more the area of intersection, the more those names should be selected for the brand. So that is how a brand name can be logically selected and can be taken forward. Next, we move to how to build a brand. Now, brand building, once you create a brand in the marketplace and offer it in the marketplace, it becomes important to also build the brand. So, if you remember that in consumer behavior, we talk in terms of consumer insights. So whenever we carry out a research, we try to bring in those elements to identify who are the customer groups, what kind of segments we should be looking at, what are their expectations and needs, and then which ones we should be taking it forward in terms of targeting, and then forward it with the branding process associated with the branding. We also can be looking at the competitive activity. That's how competitive is active in the field that we are trying to enter, or we are trying to offer new brands in the marketplace. So when you're building a brand, these are the fundamentals one has to take into account, looking into what is the customer, what is their, what kind of needs and preferences they have, and what kind of competition that we are having, what can the other brands which are existing in that space, and then look into developing further in terms of customizing that product, associating with the right kind of imagery, with the right kind of term, the name, the logo, and of course support it with the pricing strategy, And we should also look into it that whether the imagery that we are trying to associate, is that really registering with the consumers or not. For that we need to have a very sustained and a very powerful communication strategy to propagate the brand through various medium, be it the social medium or the traditional medium as we call it, to achieve their objective. Furthermore, today we are looking into these are consumer based interpretations which bring into the branding process. So we also look into a consumer connect, because consumer connect helps us in building the first level, the affability with the consumers, and once it registers, it becomes better in terms of the functional values and the consumer engagement, and the emotional and the functional attributes engage the customer more and more, and thereby what happens there, the customer confidence in the brands increase. Then comes the total brand management, where we're talking in terms of the architectures, how to make it available, how to manage it over a period of time. And the output obviously is in terms of marketing, look into the what kind of brand market share does it hold, and how many customers, what kind of market share does it have, which all markets they are getting it from, how much of the customers are associating or resonating with the brands that are being offered, how profitable are these brands, are they losing market, are they getting more markets, are they able to reach out to more geographical location, help us in geographical footprints. All these things can be captured in terms of an output, and our marketing strategies can also be aligned to looking into how the brand is perceived in the marketplace. Of course, if a brand image is able to, we can leverage on the brand image, we can also ensure customer retention for a longer period of time. And we also need to enhance the knowledge of the brand among its takers. So not only among the consumers, but also among the stakeholders. So when you look into brand building exercise, obviously we take inputs from various, not only the consumers, but when it is being rolled out, how the brand is perceived by their trade channel members, by the competitors, what kind of threat perception do we see, right? It helps us to understand the brands being delivering the goods that it is intended to. And we can also get into understanding from the customer engagement perspective, how satisfied are the customers when they're engaging with this, what kind of target customers are engaging with the brand, and can we take it to a different level altogether and go for more customer relationship management and give more life to our brands as we move forward. So the customer lifetime value of course increases, and of course the brands also register well with the customers, so resonate well with the customers. So we talk about the brand resonance pyramid, right, from it, the focus is on how to build the brand in such a manner that the customer engagement is not necessarily only at a very functional level, but at a very higher level, where they feel that the image fits into the requirements of the customers, and there's a very high level degree of engagement or association with the brand. Of course, another thing that we do is in terms of which helps us in brand building is the brand strength score, by making the brand more visible across the geographical location. So we do assessments of that on a continuous basis. And when we take feedback from the customers, again, I told you that it's not just one in a while, we build it over a period of time. We take inputs from the retailers, and we get market intelligence from how they are performing vis-a-vis the other competitors. We see the impact factors of various the marketing communication tools that we use by looking into the analytical data. Tons and tons of data is collected from various sources, and using various AI algorithms or machine learning techniques or analytical tools, we can also calibrate as to how that particular information the data point can be used further to take marketing decisions. Next, we move into a very important part of brand image. Brand image is something which has been uh, is a kind of a perceived value of the customer, or what the customers perceive about the what the brand is standing for in their minds, right? It could be because of their usage, or because of certain kind of information that has traveled to them. Based on that, the brand image is formed. Obviously, brand image, if it is distinct, if it has got a goodwill, it has got a reputation, it always uh, helps the company that the brand image is good. Having a very strong brand image always helps to render better products or better engagement with the customer, better engagement with the consumers, as well as with the other members who are associated with the brand value chain, and also with the shareholders, which is a very very critical point for today's market. Now, what are the dimensions of the brand image? When you look into the dimensions of the brand image, we can look into, it is made up of various kind of it's a blend of identity which has got symbolic and some functional evaluation in the minds of people, and it is often tries to conjure up various kind of emotional feelings, the irrational feelings, the reasons, and so forth. So we are looking into various kind of appeals which can be associated with the brand image too, in order to look at the dimension of brand image. First is the appeal to reason. Here, what happens is that where the various functions or the attributes or the way it is evaluated by the consumers becomes a kind of a appealing factor. So basically, you look into why a customer would like to pick up a particular brand. For example, when you talk about smartphone, why would anybody like to get associated with OnePlus or a Samsung or a iPhone? There is a particular reason for which they do it. So obviously, attributes, the features, the benefits that they look forward to is of critical thing. Second, we look into is the sensory part of it, because we are not only looking at the functional aspect. As I told you, the functional part is important for a consumer's perspective, how it appeals to them, but also important is also what is the kind of sensory aspects, the kind of, for example, the color, the tonality, the if you're talking about a music system, it could be the sound impact, it could be output of a product. In case of a car, the output, the looks. It's a combination of various factors, and all these kind of sensitize the various sense organs of a person. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel gratified. So product design, when you're looking to product designing, looking into product execution in terms of implementation, in terms of how the product works, all these are looked into while you are building the how it appeals to the senses. Secondly is the emotional aspect, which I was talking about in the emotional appeals. A feeling of pride. For example, if I'm an owner of a particular Mercedes, it carries that snob value with you. So would I like to get associated with it? And of course, it gives you a kind of feeling that yes, you are something, you are associated with something good when you're associating with brands. Many of them possess certain brands, not necessarily because of the product it represents, but of the psychological impact or the image that is associated with that particular product. Like for example, when I carry iPhone, it's a kind of an endorsement in the society that people look up to. Oh, he's carrying a iPhone, so it has got certain emotional build into it beyond the what the product may be good, it may invoke whatever, it may give whatever it stands for, but the kind of feeling that it evokes, the kind of emotion that it evokes is more psychologically more beneficial to the person, hence they go for it. Maybe paying a premium also doesn't matter. So it is a big thing when you look, a very big insight when you're talking in terms of the emotional connect that you want to bring up with the appeals. There's another appeal where research has found out that there's something called a reference appeal, that we look for a lot of endorse or kind of conformance that okay, we are appreciated in the society, we conform to the society standards. So our friends whom we normally refer to, which constitutes under primary or secondary references, we try to see that how they look up to us. So the social prestige, when we talk about the motivational, if it's the Maslow's need hierarchy, there's a social need, the social acceptance that that is associated with a particular brand definitely lends a kind of a reference appeal to the brand image. So these are some of the components of brand image that one needs to be understood. And from a marketing perspective, this helps us to create a very broad goodwill in the minds of the customer, and we can leverage it on in the future by engaging with the customers and building more onto the promotion strategies. Coming into the branding of commodities, unlike other consumer products, the commodities, for example, something like salt, masalas, vegetables, rice, dal, all these things, if you see, these are commodities which have undergone a kind of a branding today. So when you are branding a commodity, primarily commodities were looked upon. One of the major differentiators was the price factor. Beyond price, nothing was looked upon. But today, thankfully, when we are looking into branding of commodities, we are looking into what could be the other selling points that needs to be worked upon beyond the pricing or pricing as a point of differentiation. So everything boils down to understanding how you want to position the kind of a product, how do you package it, how do you brand it, how do what kind of value you pack in to create new kind of USPs with your brand. So, but then brand building, of course, it calls for a lot of money. It has additional cost. And suppose the packaging itself would be an expensive proposition, the labeling, the advertising, the legal protection. And this is something which is a risk that a brand should have. It involves. And with the commodity, it becomes important to advocate that in order to establish in the marketplace. But it is a risk because obviously you have to take that step ahead to register your brand as a commodity in the marketplace. And commodities, as I've told you, that you have to play with the price, and maybe you do not have so much of a leverage with so much of costs which are associated in building the brands. But anyways, we have to look into that. Since others are doing it, many competitors are doing it, one may have to also to take it up at some point of time. Because today, when you get a loose tea versus a packaged tea, obviously the packaged tea gets a kind of a better acceptance in the marketplace. Furthermore, you can also like buy biscuits, local biscuits which are being endorsed. You can also trademark them. You can also give a legal protection to the brands. As a result of it, these commodities can, like the haldi from a certain company. Of course, it is patented already, but you can XYZ haldi, you may say that. Haldirams, for example, has built from a mixture which is from a homemade kind of a scenario to something which is a big brand today, across various kind of snacks and eateries, those kind of engagements, those kind of product offerings. And today the brand has moved from a commodity to become a branded stuff and being able to leverage a premium from the customers. So one has to understand that the brand name makes it easier for the marketer to process orders. It has got an instant recognition. You are able to differentiate. So when you are branding a commodity, those are the positives which definitely enter. But the critical part is, what is it that makes a person move? What makes it? So that insight has to be understood as to what kind of a unique parameter that can be built into the brand so that the commodity registers well with the customer. One should not think that just because commodities have a kind of a homogeneous mass, only one type of particular kind of a branding would only talk about one particular aspect of it. It can be multi. As I told you, you need to understand your customers well in terms of how it is being consumed, what kind of ways in it can be consumed, and how it can be packaged in order to bring out the differentials. Secondly, also look into the marketing of the brand, because if it can be marketed well across different opportunities which are existing, whether it's an online or an offline or a multi-level marketing, that can also help the brand to leverage in the market and the commodities branding. Uh, in the long run, obviously, if that builds up to a very strong kind of a strong relationship with the consumers, it can be highlighted as a kind of a differentiator which can sustain for a longer period of time and can help become a kind of an asset to the organization. Now, there are specific consideration for branding in a commodity, as you can see it here. Some of the major issues are you should offer sufficient value to customers to induce price sensitivity, because mostly commodities have been dealing with only the price as a point of differentiation. You get it at a low price and for no names whatever associated, but the move from a price to some other aspect, it has to be very compelling, it has to be very important, and it will be relevant to the consumers. Second is, as very rightly pointed out, is the degree of consumer involvement in that entire process and the buying decision. If the customer is not involved, because these are low involved purchases, so until unless you bring out the finer points in terms of what you are trying to bring out as a differentiator, it will be difficult. Secondly, once you do that, of course, the segmentation part and segmenting, targeting, positioning becomes critical, because everybody's, though we consider it homogeneous for a commodities, it may not be so. So you have to segment further depending upon how the product is, the brand is engaging with the customers. Once these things, the say STB part is there, then you talk about the other piece which come into the tactical part, where you're talking in terms of how to communicate about the various positioning strategies, which can help the brand establish better turnover in future, and the kind of distribution, the channel members, how are they going to stock it, on what basis they will do it, and today packaging plays a very very important role in the promotion of these branded commodities, because they are like a silent salesperson, as we have seen in the product planning process also. What needs to be captured in the packaging is of crucial importance. That is why packaging is considered often as a silent salesperson, and it also lends a very strong impact in terms of the branding. If these brands become bigger, like we have seen, biscuits or snacks, which have been chips, which have been masalas, MDH, they have all become bigger brands. They all started from commodities, and today they are a force to reckon with, and can become, as we move forward, a considerable force and generate positive vibes in the marketplace, which can be sustained in the longer period of time. Going forward, you can look into other geographical. These branded stuff can move into the online as well as the offline formats. Offline formats, they have been there, but they have also moved into the online formats, and they are opening up the market in terms of their significant return to the customers, to the marketers. So from a marketing investment point of view, this is a big consideration for branding a commodity. So not only consumer product, but also commodity products branding is of significant importance. So today in our class, we looked into what are brands, how they can be named, how they can be built, and what is the concept of brand image. Going forward, the brand image also registers in terms of not only what it does for the consumers in the short run, but also across to the shareholders in the long term, and establish perhaps what we call as brands as assets. So today brands are not only just mere a term, logo or symbol, but it is a much more engaging as a concept. And today we look at the business perspective, the strategic perspective in terms of the shareholder engagement along with the consumer engagement. Thank you.